Hello and welcome back to another episode of Voices of Western. This is the Humans of Western podcast, and I'm your host, Hussein. Today, I'm excited to be back with another one of our alumni episodes featuring Savio Joseph. Savio is a Western graduate. He studied computer sciences and graduated in 2021 from Western. Apart from that, he has been in the event space for 10 plus years now. I would like to call him a hypnotist, magician, or a mentalist that does a lot of cool work on stage. He has had the chance to work with lots of great companies and celebrities, which we'll be covering more in detail. But yeah, that's about him for now. We'll be covering more about that. I just want to pass it on to Savio to give a brief introduction about himself.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I think you nailed it on the head. I went to Western University, graduated with computer science. It was something that I was good at in high school, so I thought I would pursue it in university as well. And after I graduated, I kind of went more full-time focused on what I love doing, which is the performing side of doing magic, mind reading, hypnosis, combining it together to create a spectacle on stage. And I'm blessed to have had the opportunity to work with a lot of celebrities and companies, which uh, I'm super grateful for, and it's kind of led me to be in the position that I am today. But yeah, as a kid, I never thought that in a million years this is what I would be doing when I was older. So I'm excited that I'm here.
Thank you so much for that, Savio. Why don't we take it a bit back and talk more about your childhood, where you grew up and how was magic introduced to you?
Sure. So I was born in this place called UAE, uh, in a place called Sharjah specifically. A lot of people don't know it when I say it by name. So usually my reference point is Dubai. Everyone knows Dubai. So I say it's very close to Dubai. But I was born there. I moved to Canada when I was around 4 or 5 years old. And Brampton is the place that I was kind of brought up in. How did magic get introduced? Well, the thing is, when I was a kid, I was a very extroverted, introverted kid. I loved socializing and being outside, but I also loved just being at home, trying new things, learning new hobbies and things of that nature. So it was very normal for me at that age, around, I would say like 8, 9, 10 years old, for me to be trying new hobbies. And at one point, it was Rubik's cubes. I used to love competing for solving Rubik's cubes. So very like specific niche things, but that would take time to learn by yourself. Around that age, I got a magic kit from my parents, and that kind of also opened that Pandora's box for me. It was so intriguing to me that I could learn these tiny miracles that I can do for friends and family simply by practicing on my own time. And I also learned that there was a lot more to kind of figure out in this space and a lot more to learn and kind of push myself forward. So it kind of intrigued me at that age to kind of keep going with this magic thing.
It's amazing. So you were young, you got that magic box. As it started, I'm sure we'll cover it as we go on, but as this thing started to take off and get more serious, did you start getting pushback or resistance from, your parents that, hey, you should start focusing on school and not perhaps pursuing these kind of hobbies?
Definitely, because again, I'm Indian, right? So I come from uh, a family of educated people, and they are very big on education, right? So for them, it's like make sure, hey, you are focusing on school, you're getting that done, and then as soon as that's done, you're getting doing post grad, and there's a lot that was kind of riding on the line of like, hey, these are the kind of things that are coming up for you. But I will say this: my parents were always very supportive of me doing magic and something in the arts and entertainment. It was more so. I don't think they really saw that becoming my career. It was more so that growing up, they were just very open about the idea of learning new skills and hobbies and kind of having fun doing it. So when they saw that I was doing magic, they were just really, I guess, happy for me and excited that I was doing something different and unique. But again, my mom's a teacher, so for her, it was always like, hey, you got to make sure you're getting your school on point and making sure all the grades are there. Everything else is secondary, right? So there's definitely a little bit of pushback, I think, going into university and after that, saying, "Hey, look, where is this going to go? What is the game plan with this?" But I always say this: I think my parents always came from a point of love. It was never them being like, "Hey, you need to stop doing this. Hey, you should do X or Y." It was more so they were just like, "Hey, look, we want to make sure that you're able to take care of yourself and like." We don't know how you're going to do that through entertainment. And I don't fault them, and I don't fault a lot of, people who give that kind of pushback. It's simply because they don't know enough about the industry and and they don't know how this world works, you know? So, yeah, there was definitely pushback and there was definitely a lot of conversations that we had and a lot of back and forth. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of things lined up for me and I would always show them sort of the successes that would happen along the way. And I think that made them feel a lot more comfortable by the end of it when I was like, hey, look, this is what I'm planning on proceeding to do.
Certainly. I like the part where you said they were supportive and encouraging you to try different hobbies and different activities. Was
Yeah.
magic the one of the first ones that you tried, or was it the only one that stuck? Like, what other things did you try growing up?
I mean, countless things. Like you name it, I've probably tried it just for fun. You know, I'm not saying I went like all in on it, but I was just again, I would try anything. At one point, it was rock climbing. I loved rock climbing. At one point, it was drumming. I went to go drumming lessons. I played guitar, piano, like all the sports, volleyball, basketball. Like I was just anything that I could do and just try. Like I was always so ready to do so. Right? It was there was never like a oh, do you want to know? Like, yeah, let's do it. You know, let's try it. Let's have fun. You know, even if I didn't know what I was doing and I was extremely bad at said thing, I would still go, let me do it. Let me try it and let me try to figure this out and kind of have fun doing it. That was a big thing for me growing up.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you continued with that journey and then ended up at Western. How did that happen?
The Western, so again, going back to the education thing, um, my parents again were very big on education. So the conversation of, hey, are you going to university or college was never really a are you? It was more so where. It's like it was where, what are you studying, right? So I always knew growing up that there was never an out from that. There was never a chance that I could just skip university or college completely. So kind of in high school, I was thinking about, hey, look, what's next? What am I going to do? And there was a lot more of a like again, my parents were never like, hey, you have to be a doctor, engineer, lawyer, like nothing like that. There was never like a pressure of like you need to do the specific thing. I definitely felt a little bit more of a push towards the science for sure, but again, they just wanted to make sure that I was like picking a degree where I had a lot of potential with it in the future and can figure things out with it. And so in high school, I started to kind of just take a look. I was like, what am I doing good at? What do I kind of like? What am I enjoying a bit more? And computer science was just one of those things where the class was always just fun. I remember being in that classroom with friends, and it was kind of enjoyable, like to learn. And I kind of had fun doing it. So I was like, hey, this could be the thing that I pursue into university, college. Applied to a lot of schools. I got into all the ones that I wanted to, and then it became down to like, okay, where do I want to go? And so I kind of did a campus tour of all the top, you know, 4 or 5 spots that I wanted to go. And something about Western kind of just called out to me. I just really liked the campus, and I read and heard a lot about the campus life, which is big for me because I was like, look, if I'm going to live somewhere for the next 4 or 5 years, I want to make sure that I'm not just grueling away studying. I want to make sure that I have like that balance of social life and also just activities and things to do on campus, in addition to earning my degree. And again, of all the places that I saw, Western was the one that kind of called out to me. I had a few friends there who also mentioned a couple of things about it. And again, I did my research on everywhere, but Western called out to me. I decided to go there, and I haven't looked back since. It was like the probably the best choice I made. You know, I'm a little biased, but I really, really enjoyed going to Western for sure.
Glad to hear it. And hey, Western is now one of your clients as well. You attend shows and ha host events for them, so it worked out pretty
Yeah,
well as well.
I mean, again, this goes back to what I was saying about Western from what I saw was like they're very big on supporting their people, I would say, at least from my personal experience. So for me going there, I remember being there the second day of school, and I got to do a talent show there. And it was 2 talent shows. One was in front of about 3, 4 thousand people, and the second one was with about 8,000 people. It was in front of the entire first year audience, and me doing that led them to see me, and they actually reached out and was like, "Hey, do you want to come uh, be booked as an act during O Week and other events during the school year?" So again, something so simple as reaching out and saying, "Hey, look, we like what you know we saw. We'd love to support you." as your student here and kind of give you some opportunities, which again, I'm super thankful that Western did that for me at such a young age, and then continue to do so throughout my time at Western. And now, as an alumni, they're still kind of reaching out and making sure that they're bringing me back to do events and things of that nature. So yeah, I think it's really, really cool what Western does like that.
Yeah, and I want to say also for the audience how Savio and I met were through one of those events actually. When I was a residence don, I remember he was, and that was during the COVID times. He was invited to run a virtual programming, which honestly I
Yes.
don't think many people expected it to go well. But then I remember after the event, everyone was like so happy, so mentally recharged, and like amused. It
Right.
was so amazing experience to have that virtually. And then also later, 2 years after, I was able to attend an in-person event, which was also phenomenal. You got to feel the crowd energy and see everyone's reactions was amazing. So I'm sure there's something you got there that is like asking Western to bring you back.
Listen, I don't know what it is, but they've been calling, and I'm super grateful. You said you were a Don. Which residence were you a Don at?
I was at Dawn at London Hall and then at Delaware Hall for 2 different years.
Oh, nice, 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 nice.
Yeah,
So you
was
saw the show at London Hall or Delaware?
it was at the time when I was at London Hall,
London
and
Hall. Okay.
it was during the COVID times. London Hall was restructured to be a first year residence because,
I remember. I remember.
yeah, because of like the situation with housing, they couldn't have too many people into tiny spaces because of like COVID restrictions. So there had a restructure going on there, and London Hall has been a first year residence since then.
Right. Yes, I did hear there was a shift over with London Hall, but yeah, that was fun. The virtual show was definitely fun. I remember them reaching out, trying to organize that, and I said, "Hey, look, this could be something different and could be fun for the students and the staff and whoever else is kind of joining in to see the show."
Amazing. And
Uh-huh.
then like flash forward to I think it was last November, right? Or last December when the in-person event happened. I actually didn't know about it. My roommate was telling me about it. I said, "Oh, I know this guy. Let's sign up for the event. It's gonna be fun." And it truly was. So thank you for
Of
that.
course, thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess like starting to talk about your adventure throughout Western as you were gaining more popularity.
Mhm.
How did your priorities start to shift throughout that time?
Uh, yeah, it's not even the popularity. It's just I think for me, no matter what I did in school and what course I did and what I studied, it was very hard to deny the fact that my heart was with magic. And it sounds very dramatic and very extreme, but it was the thing that I thought about when I woke up, when I went to sleep, when I had free time. It was the thing that was on my mind 24/7. So it became challenging for me as a student to find a balance between that and maintaining a social life, and then on top of that, maintaining good grades to get me through school. It became quite the challenge trying to find the balance between all three. And what came to notice were there were times where the balance just didn't exist. There was just times where I was magic was it. Like I was doing it constantly. There were TV shows that I was auditioning for, and I would, forget about school during that time, or I wasn't hanging out with friends, or it would be the other way around, where there was times where, like, again, it was just all socializing, like all friends were just hanging out, doing our thing, versus going to school and magic. And then there's times where school became the priority because I was like, oh God, I gotta bring it back. I got to bring these grades back up somehow. And the next 2 months is just like dedicated to that. So I would say it was definitely a challenge trying to find that middle ground without losing my sanity because it's not easy. It's not easy trying to balance and juggle all these things. But I think that's part of the essence of being a student. You understand that this is life. This is how things are. And there are going to be times where you're juggling a million different things and you just kind of learn how to uh, figure things out. I think that's the big thing. You'll figure it out. Whatever it is, like if you need to give time here or do this, you'll figure it out. And that's what kind of got me through that.
I want to ask you a question, but I know we'll cover it, so I will save it towards the end. But the other question I wanted to follow up on is, do you do you think that university semesters could be longer? I feel like everything is being just so crammed into not even 3.5 months, maybe like 3 months when you think about all of the holidays or like exam season that goes on. Why can't we just have like 9 months of school as opposed to eight?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about it, to be honest with you, but I feel like there's a part of me that does like the shortness of the semesters just because it gives you a fresh turnover with the second semester coming right around the corner. Like, if you're not feeling the semester, it's not the greatest semester, you have too many courses that you don't like or whatever, you're not stuck in it for the 9 months. And I think I'm speaking based off of like my 1 year long courses versus my half a semester courses, where like sometimes the 1 year course, like it feels long. It feels like, wow, I've been in
Oh
this
yeah.
course for a while. But the half semester course, I feel like it just gives me enough time to get a grasp for it. And I'm like, cool, I got it. Next, let's go to the next kind of thing. And it gives you kind of that fresh start at the next year. Also, I wouldn't want shorter summers. I would want the summers to be 4 months, and I want to make sure that I get the full 4 months to do whatever it is that I want to do. Enjoy and have fun.
I mean that's an interesting viewpoint for sure.
Do you
I
agree
wouldn't
with
want to
that?
have shorter summers either.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So for I would say that would definitely be if it was 9 months long for both, it would definitely I mean you can't, but it would be tough, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's good. Let's
Yeah,
I also like you want to give some time for kind of reflecting on your experience on being on Canada's Got Talent.
for
Want to
sure. Yeah.
talk a bit more about that?
Sure, yeah. Like it wasn't again something I planned for. It was more so like I graduated and I saw a ad or a post about the fact that Canada's Got Talent is coming to Canada for the first time. And now I say the first time because Canada's Got Talent did happen about 10, 12 years ago in Canada, but it was produced by a random company. It wasn't produced by the official Got Talent kind of franchisee, which is owned by Simon Cowell. But this time it was like the official Got Talent brand was coming to Canada. So it was the first time. It was the first season. And I was like, oh wow, like this is big because again, Canada doesn't have anything like that. They don't have many talent competitions and shows like The Voice or The X Factor, things like that. Like you don't really see that much in Canada. So I was like, this is pretty big that it's coming to Canada. And I started slowly seeing more announcements where they were like, hey, we're gonna have Howie, we're gonna have Lily, we're gonna have Trish, we're gonna have Cardi, and I was like, oh my God, like they're doing it right. They've got a star-studded line of judges, and it's gonna be great. And so I was like, look, I think this would be perfect for me to audition for. I submitted my application for this. I would say like the day it was due, and it was like super last minute. I was like, because it kind of came to my mind, and I kind of forgot about it during the summer because they started posting about it less until I think it was around September rolled around. They were like, look, applications are closing. You should get it in. Blah blah blah. And so I was like working, got it in, and then the next day I got a call from them, and they're like, "Hey, like we got your application. Like if you were on the show, what would you want to do?" And so I kind of pitched them this idea that I had, and they were like, "Can you send us a video?" Sent them the video, and they were like, "Okay, cool. Can you come do this in next week or in 2 weeks and do it in front of like the audition and in front of the judges?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness, yeah, absolutely." And that kind of started my kind of journey, I would say, through Canada's Got Talent. It was one phone call um, uh, and it's kind of funny. I'm looking up now. I have a sticky note that's still on my wall that says phone call from Canada's Got Talent. And it was kind of like I manifested it coming and without knowing. And that sticky note is still there. It's from 20, I don't even know, but it's still there on the wall because again, it was something that was so big for me. I was like, if this call happens, like it could change everything. So the call happened. I got on the show. The first one was probably the most nerve-wracking for different reasons, just because it was my first time doing Canada's Got Talent, and it was my first introduction to what they were doing and how the format was going to work and all these things. I remember I had like an early call time too. It was like 6:30. I had to be there.
Oh
And
wow.
again, I'm from Brampton, so we're coming from a bit of a further distance away. I didn't leave my house till maybe like 2 in the morning. So I got there maybe 4:30. So I got maybe half an hour of sleep. My friends who came, my friend and my brother who came with me, they probably got an hour of sleep, and then we went to head over for check-in. And again, it was a lot. It was just you had to do this, and they were filming this, and we were pulled in every direction. In the meantime, I'm like trying to rehearse my act and make sure everything is in place to ensure that I can um, pull off like a successful performance. And again, there's a lot of these small things that you don't think about, where you need backups of things and you need multiples of X. And in my first round, I don't know if you've seen it, but I break a bottle, right? And so they were like, "Hey, bring more bottles because we need to do a safety run through." And it's like those aren't things you kind of think about. You're like, "Oh shit, okay, let me get more bottles." And it's like, wait, how many bottles do I need? So like I just had like 3 cases of bottles just in case we somehow smashed 40 bottles. I was like, okay, like just in case. So again, all these things are running through my mind, and I'm like grabbing things and putting in the car, getting ready, and finally at the place. And um we filmed the audition, and it was the biggest rush. I remember just being there on stage in front of all these people and being in front of the judges, and the moment like the routine was done, I just knew. I was like, oh sh like it all worked. It was good. We're good. Like we're in the clear. And then and all the judges stood up and started clapping, and I was like, oh my God, like this is insane. And so it was such a rush. And I remember walking off stage, I was on the craziest like life high you can get. Like I was just there's again, it was just nothing. It was literally just that adrenaline and that feeling of hey, this is what 10-year-old Savio was working for, and like this finally came full circle fruition moment. And then I got invited to be on the semifinal round, and in the semifinals again it had its own challenges. There was a lot of ups and downs during the preparation process and trying to figure things out. But thankfully, everything went really smooth, and I got selected as one of the judge selections that would move on to the finale. And so, again, another crazy moment where I was just like, wow, like this is happening, and like this is how it's meant to be. And it was such a exhilarating feeling. It was unlike anything I've ever felt. It was just like, okay, let's go. We're in the finale. We're in the final eight. People then that led into the finale, which again, by this point, I felt a lot more comfortable in my shoes just because I was like, okay, I understand what this feels like. I know what the format is like. I know what to expect on the day of. I know what to expect a couple days before. I know what rehearsals are like. So it felt a lot more better, in my opinion. And also by the finale, because there's a lot less people, they have more time to give you, right? So it's a lot more like, hey, what do you need? What are the things we can do for you? It's like it becomes a lot more personalized because again, there's only 8 people. They can spend more time on every individual versus in the audition round where they have thousands of people who they're auditioning. It becomes a little bit more challenging where it's like you have to kind of make sure you got everything you need and figure it out and organize. Finale came, and I didn't win, but that was totally cool with me. I wasn't, upset over it or anything, just because for me, I knew that just being on the show was a win. It was just being on the show, being a finale, sorry, being a finalist was a win for me, and the experience overall it helped change me as a performer, and it also helped change the trajectory of my career, I would say, and it pushed me to become a better creator, performer, and allow me to grow my business as an entertainer, kind of going forward from there. That was
Wow.
a very long-winded.
No, it was perfect actually. It took us through the whole journey, ups and downs, the whole emotional roller coaster, not knowing what comes next. So it was pretty amazing to hear. One of the things I want to kind of double click on was the sort of coaching that you were able to get or support. How was that like? Were you able to like connect with different people on a one-to-one basis and gain feedback from them as you were crafting your experience that you were going to deliver?
So not necessarily coaching because again, they're not magicians. They don't really know what they're talking about in terms of like the magic point of view. What I meant is more so when you're doing a show like this, nothing is unaccounted for, right? So when they're producing a show, they want to make sure, hey, where are you standing? What are you going to be doing? Why are you going to be standing over there? Because remember, there's a million cameras that are rolling as well. So like if you do something that's not something that they know is going to happen or accounted for. And when I say they know, I'm not talking about the judges. I'm talking about the people who make the show, who put the show together, whose job is to make sure you look good on TV. They need to know a lot of this information. So there's definitely a lot of back and forth conversation of like, hey, how do we do X? How do we make this look bigger? How do we, make this look nicer or have a better impact on the people that are, watching the performance. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of back and forth that we work on together with that. And again, there's things that they might be like, hey, this is just not going to work. Like we can't pull off something of this grandeur. Like it has to be a little bit more contained or something like that. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of back and forth in that nature for with them, I would say.
And did you start getting like calls after the show or performance invites? Because usually what happens is we see, for example, Shark Tank, a show that I'm familiar with. What I've heard
Yes.
is when they go and advertise next day, like they sell out or they get a lot of
Yes.
calls, even if
Yeah.
they don't make a deal. How was
Yeah.
that experience from what, your personal experience was?
Yeah, I was definitely getting a ton of calls and emails and DMs and requests about shows and bookings. But for me in that moment, I kind of just waited. I gave it like a couple weeks because I was like, I want to make sure that I'm fully recollected and I'm like good to go. But I made sure to uh, utilize those, reach outs and make sure that everything was going smoothly. So I'm super happy that it worked out in that way. And I was kind of ready for it because I knew that doing a show like this, like you said, it brings that kind of outreach and it brings that kind of um, awareness towards people. So people do start reaching out. So yeah, I definitely made sure to utilize that to the best of my ability.
That's and if you were to give one piece of advice for someone who I would imagine like dreams of ending up on live TV at some point in the future, what would you tell them?
It's tough because live TV is such a vague term. It could be anything. Like you want to be on a movie set, do you want to be on a TV show, do you want to be on like a Got Talent series, which is more like reality TV. It's tough to give you like one piece of advice that would kind of get you on the show long term. I would just say like if you have a goal of something, this is more general advice I would say, like you would have to I think the most practical advice I could give is to work backwards. You have a goal. Like let's just say, for example, it's to be on Got Talent. You know that in order to be on a show like that, you need to have something to showcase. Okay, great. You have step number one. It's finding that thing that you'd want to showcase, whether it's singing, dancing, juggling, whatever it is. It's like figuring that out. And then you watch and understand everything you can about this show. You watch every episode possible. You see what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then you start figuring out those little nuances of like, oh, this act worked because they had a story and they had this, and their act was like this, and whereas this act had nothing. They didn't do any of that. They did just straight this, whatever. And you start to pinpoint some of those things and key details, and then comes the work. Then you have to kind of just consistently start working and trying to put together an act that can work. And there's again, a lot of people don't see even my Got Talent journey, the beforehand, like the show that you see, the 10 minutes that you see is the final product. You don't see the hours and hours of writing and rewriting and scripting and blocking and rehearsing to ensure that there was an act that went well together. And not only that, there's so much that was cut. That act was all the acts you see are way longer, but they had to all be cut down to ensure that I would be able to hit this, 5-10 minute mark that they would give you where you can do your performance. So again, you find out what you want to do and you kind of make those steps and kind of break it down into actionable goals, right? It's like, hey, what are a couple things I can do today or this week that will push me towards that goal? And maybe that's the computer science brain coming out because I'm very logical and very logic oriented. But it's just like, how do you find those steps that will kind of push you towards that goal of being on TV one day?
That's a great piece of advice. I'm sure everyone can learn more about, having smart goals, having something in mind that you can work consistently towards, and then
Yeah,
obviously imagining an end product and then working backwards. With the caveat that it can always change, right? Like as you start
absolutely. Yeah.
working, you can always learn new things that the end goal that you once had would no longer feel reasonable because you can achieve a lot more than you thought, and that's perfectly fine.
I'll give you the perfect example. For me, my big thing was getting on America's Got Talent, and I did audition for the show many times, and I got rejected time and time after again. But the thing is, every time I got rejected, I learned something. I learned how the show was working. Started understanding what the people making the show wanted, and I started to be in a very better position than, if I had just walked in blindly. And I started to reach out to people who were on the show just to understand what was your experience like, what are they looking for, what do they want. And again, that was my goal. I wanted to be on America's Got Talent, and that door never opened for me. But funny enough, all those no's led to Canada's Got Talent. And in that moment, I realized, I was like, oh, wow, like maybe I wasn't meant to do, America's Got Talent. And again, I'm not saying never. Maybe that'll happen in the future. But my big thing was Canada's Got Talent in that moment. And that timing was, it couldn't have been better.
And this is a perfect segue into our popular hot takes section where we ask our guests a question and see what their takes are on it. Savio and I were discussing about life post graduation, and I think we have similar feelings about how that is going for most of our friends, how people feel about it. And so I just want to bring it out to the public here. So the question goes, it's a bit of a mouthful, so bear with me. What's your take on how should people explore life after graduation? Are we in too much of a rush to grow up after finishing university or not?
100%. I think that we live in a time where everything is go, go, go. You have to go to school, you have to graduate and then get a job and support yourself. And once that's done, you got to look for a partner and then potentially get married and then have kids. And then the cycle continues and it repeats actually, right? So I think that especially post grad, it is the greatest time of your life because again, you're still so young. You have that naiveness to you, and there's just a lot less riding on your back. Now, obviously, everyone's circumstance is different. I totally understand that people might be in different boats and different situations, but I'm talking in the general sense for a lot of people. I know that post grad is when they have again, the most uh, chance to do different things and try different things. But unfortunately, I see a lot of people don't do that. They don't execute on that time that they have, and rather they kind of focus on getting the job and again finding the partner, getting t married, and then having kids possibly. And I was lucky enough growing up to have a lot of friends who were a number of years older than me, and so I used to get this perspective from different people. So I remember being in first year, I had friends who were just graduating, talking about their experience in university and what they would do differently if they could look back. And so that would always be in the back of my mind, kind of going into graduation. I remember I had friends who are now 4 or 5 years older who are now at that point where they're out of school, they look for a job, they've kind of climbed a corporate ladder, and they're at a position where they're kind of good at what they do, but they were extremely unhappy with themselves because they didn't ever take time to kind of focus on themselves. They went straight into work right after. And I also had friends who were, again, a number of years a little bit more older who were then married, had kids, and in a completely different position than a lot of people. And I would hear from them often that, hey, once they had kids, their entire priorities changed. It was now about the kid. And again, they love that. They love that it's about the kid, but they do say that they don't have any more time for themselves anymore, which is a scary thought to have because it's like, where in this world, in this universe, this timeline, do we get that time for ourselves, right? Like we start going to school at a very young age where we're told to do things and there's assignments and deadlines. And then once that's done, you go to high school. Again, the cycle continues, same thing. And then you go to university or college, or maybe you don't. But again, the cycle continues there. And then right after that, you start working and then starts this chain of where does this go? So for me, I'm a big advocate of slowing down and trying to figure things out and understand and try new things. I also think that when you're young, it's when you have the lowest, like highest risk tolerance because you can do some crazy things. And for most people to have like a safety net, like for example, if you have parents who, you can go live with, again, you don't need to be spending X amount of dollars rent and losing money just to have this lifestyle and then finding a job to upkeep that lifestyle. You can live with your parents and try to figure things out while you're there. Now, again, like I said, this is not going to work for everyone. I'm not trying to paint this picture as this is the perfect solution. I know everyone's in a different circumstance, but I do think that if you slow down and just kind of try new things and try to find that happiness and enjoy life a little bit, you'll find that you'll be a lot more fulfilled with what you're doing, I think personally.
Honestly, this is one of the few times where I literally don't know what else to add because it's just so perfect and in line with what I would have said too. It's scary when you see all of those. Like recently, a graph that I've been seeing was showing how the time you spend with your family, friends,
Yes.
partner, coworkers changes the moment you hit 18 and like continue growing up. Like as soon as you start a family, all of those things change.
Right.
Work takes uh, a third of your day for 40 years. Now, if we're talking um, standard number of years for working and then retiring.
Right.
That's what I'm like referencing here. But
Hmm.
it's crazy how all of these happen. Um, and I feel what happens is the moment you graduate, when you're like 22, 23, 24, all of a sudden 100 things get added onto your plate. Getting a
Yes.
mortgage, starting dating, climbing corporate ladder, having a kid, like all of those things end up on your plate from day one, and that's what
Yep.
I think makes it scary. But yeah, if people who have the privilege to be able to slow down, that would be the best. Um, I think,
And the other thing is, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I
go.
just point, but you mentioned there's a lot of things that are added to your plate, right? Now, some of them come out of necessity, right? Like if you went to school and you took on a lot of debt and you're paying for school, yes, like that is one of those things that will get added to your plate because you have to pay off school somehow. But there are a lot of things that are added to your plate that are a bit more societal and they're from friends and family, and it feels like this is the only voice that exists around, because it's constantly around you, whether it's your family members or your close peers, and it starts to feel like this is the only voice around, and you keep hearing this, and that is what it is. This is the truth that has to be done. I think this is where exploring, traveling, opening up to reading new books and listening to podcasts and other things where you can hear other voices and other thoughts and opinions will help you kind of get out of that bubble and feel like, oh my God, I have this crippling weight of things on my plate that I need to get done. I need to do this. I need to. It's like, no, you don't need to do, anything that you don't want to do. And again, it's one of those things where it's such a gray line because it's so different for individuals, but for the majority of it, I'm just saying, like, I feel like a lot can change by simply changing the environment that you're in. And that doesn't even have to be physically. It could even just be mentally. Like you could change the kind of things that you're listening to, the books you're reading, the input that is going into your brain. And that could help you kind of change that mindset of like, oh my God, I have to do this. I need to do X and Y and Z, you know?
Yeah. I really like the distinction between what you actually need to do versus what you think you need to do, which is
Right.
things that come from the society. So that was good.
And people
Continuous
also,
learning that and traveling, that's perfect as well.
yeah. And I think people also have this idea that, look, you need to be X by 30 years old. You need to be X by 25 years old. Like you need to have all these things figured out by X amount of time. But it's like, look, life is this ongoing journey. Like we're figuring things out as we go. Even our parents who to this day they're just on this journey of life and they're at a different stage, obviously, and they figured out a lot of things we haven't yet, but they're also still just figuring things out. And I think that's the big thing is that we can't, be so adamant on, hey, I need to have this by this time. I need to have X by this time. Life is a journey and we just got to enjoy that journey. Otherwise, it'll be extremely, extremely difficult to enjoy the things that we have in our life.
Certainly. How would tell me more about your perspective on traveling? How would traveling help change someone's mindsets? Is it exposure to new cultures? Is it just getting I don't want to I don't want it to sound bad, but just being looking at people who are lower than you in like socioeconomic status perhaps and just becoming grateful for the lifestyle that you're having. Is that one of them?
It's a combination of a number of things, and I think first and foremost, if you've kind of grown up and stayed in one area your entire life, that is everything you know. That is, this is what is normal to you. The people act in this way, behave in that way, and this is the mannerisms of the world. This is how people do things. It becomes very normal that this is it, and you start to imagine that the rest of the world is kind of like this. And I'm not saying you intentionally do it, but kind of unintentionally, Oh yeah, this is just how things are done. This is how people do it. The moment you step foot outside of that bubble that you live in and you start to see the world, you start to see how different life is in different parts of the world, whether it's better or worse. It opens up your mind in a way that I just can't explain. Like it's one of those things that once you see certain things, you just can't unsee it. And then you start having this gratitude for life, and then you also start having more of a open mindset to understand that look, we're all human beings, and although we may be different, we're still connected in different ways. And I think it allows you to grow as a human being and allows you to mature as a person as well. And I think it is the number one life hack to again becoming a better person. I think traveling will do that for you. It'll open your eyes. Now, when I say traveling, obviously I don't simply just mean going to a city, just looking at the tourist sites and coming back. It's more so like you travel, you go and you experience the culture and life there. You know, if you're spending some time in a city, like you go to maybe outside of like the shopping districts and you go and you see, hey, look, what is it like to be here? I went to go visit China and obviously I did like the big, the Great Wall and the tourist sites, but then we also did more like low key stuff and I was trying street food and just kind of trying to embed myself into the culture. And I learned so much. And there's places where like we had no way to communicate because I didn't speak their language, they didn't speak English, and there was just this weird sense of like, how do I communicate? But somehow, even through that, we were able to communicate and laugh and share like good moments like that. So I think that again, traveling is so crazy because it opens your mind, and once your mind is open, there's no way to close that back. It's once you start seeing what's out there, you're like, oh wow, this is it, this is real. And I know you mentioned one thing about the socioeconomic status. Listen, I think that's definitely a play as well, part of it as well, where when you start seeing different parts of the world and what different people kind of have to go through, and you start to see what you have, you start to become more grateful, and you start to, I guess, be humbled in a way because you're like, wow, I have certain things that I can just do with a blink of an eye that some parts in the world don't even have remotely any access to. you know uh, there's just so many examples of that. I'm just like, wow, like I'm so grateful that I get to live in Canada. I have a home, like I have heat in the cold. Like these are things that, people take for granted that you would never imagine. And you see these things around the world and you start to see, oh wow, like I am so grateful that I'm in the position I'm in. And I think going back to what I was saying earlier, it will actually, I think, push you to pursue the things you want to do because you start to see, wow, I'm so privileged to be in a position where I can learn. Like, if you have a cell phone and access to the internet, you can learn any skill you want. You can go on YouTube, you can learn any skill you want. You want to learn how to dance, you want to learn how to play guitar, like you can learn it for free if you have access to the internet. So it's just like that one simple thing alone is just like, wow, we are so privileged. We are so privileged to have these things. And I think traveling, and just seeing new things and exploring will help you kind of want to do that more.
One of the things that changed my mindset about this whole, I guess, life in general,
Hmm.
was reading was it a video? I think I watched a video from this person called Alex Hormozy, who you
Yep. Yep.
may have seen his content on Instagram or like social media. He
Of course.
talked
Yep.
about the fact that in 3 or 4 generations after, like, people die,
Hmm.
they're like those people who came from their family line wouldn't even recognize them, wouldn't even know their names or like what they did or what they work and all of those things. And that was
Right.
a big mindset shift for me. It was like, if, yeah, in like 200 years later, you're not gonna be remembered. Not that everyone would be remembered in a good way or a bad way, but like just in general, they wouldn't remember you. Then why would you care so much about the opinion of people? And that like
Right.
stuck with me. I was like, yeah, he's right. Why would you like care about other people's opinions if like in 200 years like everyone would be dead?
Right.
Harsh, but like a good reality check if someone is like
Right.
too much caring about what others think.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
On a less serious note, I guess, why don't you walk us through, your day-to-day life when it comes to work? How do you manage your day, or like what do you typically work on?
So the day to day, it's tough because it really depends on the time of year, what I'm doing, and certain things. the one thing I would say is kind of I would say similar, or one thing I could talk about is like show day, because those days are usually filled with, early. It's funny. I'm not a morning person. I don't love the mornings. But I've, come to get used to them through work and things like that. But it's funny growing up, I used to always think, oh, like it'd be easy. You become an actor, you become an entertainer, and you can just have, late starts to the day because everything's in the evening. But is that is completely further from the truth, because again, a lot of these show days start early in the morning. Again, Canada's Got Talent call time was 6:30 in the morning, meaning I had to be up earlier than that to make it to the 6:30, so I'm usually meeting up with my team. I have a small team that travels with me as well, whether we're going together or separately. And then it's on to the destination. I go there a couple hours early. We do sound check. We're doing through all the tech and making sure the production is there with audio, video, lights, all the above. And then there's a little bit of downtime to kill in between, where usually I'm chilling in the green room and we're just hanging out. And again, anytime I get a chance to travel with friends, I like to bring them on as well. The show you saw me at Western, I actually had about uh, like six or seven of my buddies there with me, and they were all just came to see the show and support and whatnot. But it's just fun, those downtimes you get in between. I get to hang with them and just chill, and so that happens, and then show happens usually, and after that, I'll stick around for an hour or two just to kind of say hello to everyone. I love just getting to meet people who are coming to see the show. And I get to connect with people like you because of that, right? So I hang out for a bit, and then after that, it's usually just head back to the hotel and we call it a night. Or if I'm with my friends, we go out or have some fun. Other than that, other day to day, it really depends. There's some days where I'm focused on content creation, so my day becomes, hey, today we're writing a script or figuring out what I'm editing or what I'm doing, and then the evening might be spent filming, and then the next day might be spent editing. Then there's times where I'm working more on the business side of it, and there's email days. It's the entire day is just emails and meetings. The day starts and it's literally from the morning, email, meeting. So it de really, really depends. And then there's times where I am, again, doing certain work, like I'm working on the website or I'm working on other business related tasks for the day. But yeah, it's so varied. I would say the day to day, depending on what needs to be done. It's more task oriented. So for the week, if my goal is, hey, I need to get these tasks done, boom, like the day to day will look different for that. So depending on the task, the day will change.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for sharing these with me. When it comes to, I suppose, getting clients, we talked about getting repeat clients, like for example, Western inviting you back. How do you go about getting new clients or pitching your shows to others?
It's a variety of different methods, I would say. I don't do any like paid advertising. It's mainly a lot through word of mouth. It's through events and showcases that I've done, and that in itself brings up like a majority of the bulk work that I do. And then there's a lot of like connections that are made through mutuals, right? So if I work an event, a lot of times they will refer me to another client that they have, or they'll work with someone else and say, hey, look, you should work with X or Y. So yeah, it's definitely a number of different things like that, and sometimes outreach as well. If there's a cool event coming up that I see that I want to do, I might have my agent or myself reach out or something of that nature. But most of it, I would say 90% of it comes from word of mouth and events that I'm doing and showcases and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's word of mouth is really important, especially when it's positive. A lot of positive
Yeah,
reinforcement behind it can be like super amazing, especially from the people you trust. If I know a
yeah,
friend
yeah.
who I trust really well, and they said, "Hey, you got to get this man on a show." Yeah, I would definitely give it a try. Why not? So
Right.
it's good.
Right. It's listen, people listen to people they like and trust, right? So if they like you and um, they recommend something or you recommend something to them, they might be more prone to saying, "Hey, let's do this." So, yeah, it's a combination of different things. I know there's probably a lot more I could be doing for marketing, but I'm in a good spot and I do like kind of the work that I do and the quantity and what I'm at. So, yeah, we'll see if there's some new, methods I would implement at a certain point.
Amazing. And I know because of your career and having different shows in different locations, you also have traveled a lot. Do you have any cool
Mm.
story or like experiences you want to share about places you have visited or locations you have had shows at?
Um, Hmm. Cool stories. I mean, there's no like crazy story that comes to mind. I just really like again, traveling for me is is probably the best part of the job. Like I love traveling so much. And I know one day like it'll become a little bit more of a tiring thing because sometimes when you travel for shows, it's not as easy to enjoy the place you're in, right? And I didn't understand this growing up because I remember I used to see a lot of touring artists be like, "Oh, like traveling's fun, but you know, it's tough because sometimes you're doing back-to-back nights in different cities, so it's like you arrive in one city and you do the show that night, you sleep, you wake up and you go to the next city. So yes, you did travel to the city, but you were there for a night and the you know the night is over. So I always try my best to extend the days as much as I can. You know, and again, this goes back to my philosophy on shows is like I'm not the type to do like a million shows in a week or a weekend. You know, I don't there are some weeks where they do get batched up like that. When, for example, universities come or college shows come, like they're usually like O week, for example, is a very busy week because every school is doing O week and it's one after the other. Um, I usually try my best not to do too many clumped together. But again, there are times where I do, and it's fine. You know, you kind of adapt. But for the most part, I allow myself time to spend a couple days and just chill and have kind of some fun. Um, TikTok flew me out to New York end of last year, and when I went there again, I was just like, I love New York. I've been before, but I was like, oh, I love to spend some time here. So me and my videographer actually we did the show, and then after that, we spent 2, 3 days in New York just hanging out, getting food, going out, you know, just chilling and exploring the city. And again, it's fun. I just enjoy doing that. Yeah, I don't know. That'd probably be my kind of fun story. Again, I like to explore as much as I can, try local food, local cafes and breweries and whatever I can just to kind of get a feel for the community and culture there.
Oh man, yeah, that's amazing. Like traveling, as we discussed previously, can give you a lot of perspective into what other people's lives are like. For
Right.
example, when I visited New York, I realized I don't really want to live here. It's like so crowded,
Mhm.
so busy, so fast paced. Maybe that would change though. Maybe like in a year or two, it would be like, no, I want to live in New York. But my first impression is like it's a super nice city. Um,
Right.
great food options, great places to visit, but also like super expensive and
Mhm.
super crowded and fast paced. It also teaches you about things that you like and don't like in
Absolutely.
life in general. Okay,
Yeah.
now onto our mystery question section. So this is a question where our previous guests leave it for the next guest to answer. And
Okay.
yeah, so our previous guest, the question they left for you is, if you had to redo some part of your career journey, which part would it be and why?
If I had to redo a part of my career journey, that's a tough question, and I know there's kind of a kind of a scapegoat answer, but like I personally do feel like there's nothing I would change simply because it's led me to the position I'm in today, and I'm grateful for where I am. And I think sometimes when we think too much about, hey, what we could have done better and what we could have changed, we focus on the wrong thing because the past is a past for a reason. There isn't much you can do to change that, and I think dwelling on that will just cause you to be unhappy because you think about, oh, if I did this and because again, truthfully, if I could go back in time, there are a number of different things that I would have done different in terms of approach and you know, contacting right people ahead of time and going for certain things, you know, conferences or conventions way before. But maybe the time wasn't right for me then. Maybe that's why it didn't work out for me at that time and I didn't do those things. So I'm truly happy at where I'm at today, and I don't think I would change anything honestly along the way. Um, but if you want the honest answer, I would say it would just be more education around the things that I wanted to do, right? Education doesn't have to be simply in school. It doesn't have to be you going to school and that's how you're educating. It could be if you're again obsessed about the business side of things, you're studying, which I did, but I'm saying at a higher level. You know, it's understanding more about marketing and business and diving deeper. But yeah, I have no regrets because I'm doing those things now. So I don't think there's a perfect time for these things, you know. So it's just you go as the journey takes you, and you enjoy the journey at the end of the day.
Amazing. Well, it's good that you're enjoying the ride. You know, a lot of people um, would like to think twice about many of the experiences, but I'm glad that you didn't have to, think long about this. That's always good, right? It's always
Right.
good. It means you live in the moment, you're present, and are realistic about how not everything can happen for one person. So
Yeah.
that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like it's not even that I'm realistic. I think it's more so just that like I am. I think that when you want something, right, whatever it is, if you truly want it with all your heart, um, there's a quote from The Alchemist where he says the whole world um, will conspire to get it or make it happen for you. I'm paraphrasing the quote, but I do believe that if you truly want something with your heart, it will happen to you and for you. It just comes with time, and you have to be willing to be patient, and you have to be understanding that the journey is the exciting part. A lot of people think that it's the end goal, for example, the TV, like, a lot of people think it's getting on TV that brings you the high and that exciting feeling, but it's truly the journey. It's the journey getting there is what you will remember. It is what you'll talk about. It is the story that you are sharing with the world. And so I think that it's not about being realistic per se, because I think you can have crazy, crazy goals. And if you truly want them, yes, you can go after them, but it's more about, enjoying the journey because a lot of people don't. And that's when you really realize, do you love what you're pursuing? If you do, then just the journey's worth it. If I didn't love magic, I would have hated the countless hours and the nights of, rehearsing and redoing and this and that and whatever. But because I love what I do, none of that is work to me. That is for me, it's like that is part of my journey. That is part of my process. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think I'll leave it at, enjoy the journey. That's it. Fall in love with the process.
Amazing. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Savio, for sharing with us a different perspective. I'm sure we all learned a lot about um, the behind the scenes behind like getting on a show, your career journey, pivoting, doing something completely unconventional. That was all
Mm.
super valuable. I'll pass it on to you for any final words that you may have, and where can our listeners give you a follow or follow along your journey?
Final words. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far into the podcast episode, I hope you learned a thing or two, or even just had a little, stroke of fire started for you and what you want to do. You can find me everywhere at Savio Joseph TV, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere is my handle. And hopefully, I'll see one of you at a show in the future sometime.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you so much for your time and have a good day.
Absolutely. Thank you.